That'd be about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes, folks. Welcome to Open Pagan Church on Sunday. Be with you in just about 2 minutes. Now about 1 minute. And welcome. Open Pagan Church here on this Sunday. Hope everyone is having a relatively decent day. If not, just an absolute phenomenal day. Um, North Texas, a little warm. Got the window shades open here at the office. Looks like we got some rains moving in. I checked the radar. Looks like North Texas, North Central Texas is under showers and slight storms throughout the rest of the day. So much for me running network cable today. Dang it. Anyway, hope we're coming through loud and clear. Our topic today is living in the past. I say again, living in the past. And no, I'm not going to sit here and chastise you for wanting to live in the days of the old, right? Um, my family and I like to do a lot of the Renaissance fairs. I love the history of the past, right? When I go to Scotland, I try to go to as many of the old castles and old places as I possibly can. So I'm a firm believer that it is perfectly fine. In fact, it's recommended to research the past from multiple different areas. Don't just choose one book or one. I lost the word. Poof. Don't just choose one source for your research of the past, but living in the past, not letting go, if you will, of loved ones who's passed on and going on to their next life. And I've had good morning to those of you that are popping in. Welcome. I have had multiple conversations with multiple friends about the celebration. Like, I'm a fan of Martin Luther King. Yep, I am. I'm a fan of the late Reverend Martin Luther King and the things he did. The things he did for the country. The things he did for the um, freedom of rights. But to me, we should be celebrating their birthday. Like, for example, Martin Luther King Day. It's celebrating his death. All right. I think we should be celebrating his birthday. I think we should be remembering the tragic circumstances of his death and of all of our people's death, if you will. I think we should remember the circumstances. But I think we should hang on to their birth date and the things they did. I think we should change Martin Luther King Day to the day of his birth. And the same with all of the other famous people, that it's a American national holiday to celebrate the death of the individual. To me, that's kind of macabre because it kind of sets a precedent. It sets a precedent of living in the past, right? Yes, I've lost loved ones, I've lost families, I've lost good friends. I've had to say goodbye to to people that I considered family. But at the same time, I can't I can't tell you the death date of my grandparent McDonald, my grandpa McDonald, my grandmother McDonald. I can't tell you their death date. I can kind of sort of tell you their birth date, but my poor memory is like a cheese grater. It's just kind of there. But when they passed, we did the ceremony to wish them well. I did the rites of passage for my grandmother McDonald. She was cremated. We put her in the urn and we put her up on the shelf. But that's her ashes. Her spirit is gone, talks to me on occasions, with me periodically, and we celebrate the day of birth. We don't celebrate, or I don't go back and relive a day of death. To go back and relive a day of death, you're dredging up those emotions. You're dredging up that pain. Go back and celebrate the day of their birth, their birthday. Light a candle on their birthday. Remember the good things they did. See what we got posted over here in the chat area. And see, Robert makes a real good point. He says his biggest challenge is not so much processing those who have crossed over, but, and I'm going to add a little bit here, right? But more hanging on to those who abandoned me. You know, it's gonna sound really cold, and morning, dude. It's gonna sound really cold, but we are, most of us, many of us, are taught growing up to really be angry at the passing of a loved one. You see funerals where people are, oh, how could he do this to me? How could she leave me all alone like this? Oh, me, I. It's not about you, folks. When a loved one passes, it's not about me. It's about them. They're not, morning, Tasha. They're not doing this to me. It's not their fault. Well, unless they commit suicide, and well, that's a topic for another show, and boy, it won't be politically correct. Suicidal deaths are always tragic. But the tragedy of someone's life being snuffed out by someone else, that's tragic. Growing old, living our time, dying in our time, alright, that's tragic. But they didn't do it to me. Your loved ones who have moved on, or and God has forbid, gotten killed by someone else, or God has forbid, died at a very early age, like stillborn or something like that. My heart goes out to you for sure. I don't want to sound cold there, but I think the point I'm trying to make is it's not their fault, and it's not your fault. Living in the past is a very dangerous thing. And when we are so busy celebrating or having holidays for the death rather than having holidays for the birth, celebrating birthdays, right? Loved ones that have passed on and moved on, if you still want to celebrate their birthday, by all means, man, bake them a little cupcake, put a candle on it, and light the candle and say, happy birthday, Granny, happy birthday, Grandpa, or happy birthday, brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever they were, best friend, adopted relatives. Remember the good, right? We got to remember the bad because it's part of what made people people. But celebrate the birth, the beginning. Like each Sabbath, right? As a pagan, granted, my chosen path is shamanism, but as a shaman, we like to celebrate new beginnings. When winter turns to summer, we don't give a whole lot of winter dying. It's going to happen. We celebrate the new birth of the new sun and the beginning of summer. It's a personal thing. And how you do what you do is up to you. But death is not necessarily an ending, but a beginning of a new chapter. And when we hang on to that, right? And I'd like for you guys to maybe listen real close to this next statement. When we hang on to the end, right? And this is the end of anything, the end of a job, the end of the life of a loved one, the end of a life of someone we may have known relatively well. When we hang on to the end, we tend to find ourselves getting wrapped up and winding ourselves up in the end instead of the journey to get there. Now, we can hypothesize, we can theorize, and we can debate all day long what happens at the death of a human being, right? The variable thought processes and beliefs of what happens after the death of a human being is vast. You've got every different variable belief of absolutely nothing happens to absolutely wonderful, beautiful things happen upon the death of a human being. I'm not here to debate that. I think what I am here this morning is to kind of remind everyone that would it not be better to when someone that we know and love or just know passes on, we have to look at their life that we knew of it, right? Because sometimes in the bigger scheme of things, we may meet someone, we fall in love, either fall in love in a friendship or what is it they call it nowadays? Bromance, sistermance, whatever it is they call it. I just call it good friends, right? Good friends, family. When someone becomes a good friend to me, they become family, which means it's tight, right? And that's just always been my interpretation of family. Some may disagree, and that's fine. But when they move forward, when this body right here, right, this thing that if I pinch out, this thing that if I pinch it, it hurts. Um, it's going to give up one day. I'm going to wake up one day dead, and it's just going to happen. Are they going to give me a second chance to come back and relive this shit and try to get it right? This is kind of funny. The only thing I've ever asked is when I am reincarnated and I do come back, I want to come back with all the memories of this lifetime so I don't do the same shit over again and make the same mistakes. So, yeah. But when we hang on to the end, we're hanging on to the negative. We're hanging on to what was. And we're completely, totally forgetting about what there is tomorrow. You know, and many say, and I myself have been said to say, tomorrow never gets here. Because tomorrow is always tomorrow. Yeah, you're right. Tomorrow is always tomorrow. But today, when I wake up, when the alarm goes off, when I manage to drag my ass out of bed, I have today. I have my vape. I have my Dr. Pepper or my coffee, which I couldn't be bothered to make this morning. I just got up and got my Dr. Pepper. I have, luckily, um, I'm very honored that I have my family. Many don't have that. But there have been a period of time in my life where at the moment all I had was me. Everybody else was busy, they were off doing their thing, they were off making their way, making their living, doing what they needed to do. And for a minuscule point in time, right? For just a moment, I remember sitting in my recliner of my old house down south. My parents had moved to Dallas. Um, my grandmother had just passed. Granted, we had 100 and something people that came out, but for the moment in time, for that period of time, I had me. That was it. Everybody else was busy. Everybody else was doing their thing. I had me. And I came to the realization, I came to the understanding that I, right, I have to be good enough for me. I have to be willing to be okay with if everything else is gone, everyone else is gone, and everyone else has moved on. Whether they've packed up and moved physically or they passed on to the next realm. Folks, you still have to be okay with you. Because at the end of the day, who's looking at you back in the mirror is who you've got. Okay? Let's see what we got going on out here. And I want you guys to keep sharing. Keep sharing the things that have happened to you. Put them out there. Um, Tasha says, I don't have much family. She says, her animals are most of her family. And when you think about it, it's Tasha says, I needed this for our dog passed away 14 years ago peacefully yesterday. And I think this is exactly the point. And I don't want to single Tasha out, but she's more the norm. She can remember that her dog passed away 14 years ago yesterday. Peacefully. We're always glad to hear that. But here's a question. Do you know the dog's birth date? Do you know the animal family, right? Because um, we have three cats and my parents have two. And we, wait, what? She passed yesterday. Okay, so who passed almost 14 years ago yesterday? Anyway, I grew up on a horse ranch. September 19th. God, there you go. But how many of us can actually remember the birth date of our animals? Like I said, I got a brain like a cheese grater. Hell, I do good to remember my own birthday. But I think herein lies the whole point. We miss our pets, our family, and our pets are our family. I've had friends that say it was just a dog, bury it and move on. I would never find myself saying that to anyone. I've had to bury horses, pigs, chickens, cows, cats, dogs. Um, I had a guinea pig when I was younger, when I was a kid. I think most kids had guinea pigs at one point or another. But hanging on to that, I'm not talking about forget it, okay? I'm not talking about forget the loved one. I'm talking about celebrate their life, their birth. Like I say, light a candle for their birthday. Don't think of their death date as an ending because it's the beginning of a whole new chapter for them. Be happy for them. Granted, we're still here. We're still living. We're still we're still moving forward, if you will. And those animals, humans, whatever that have been close to us have moved on to their next chapter. They've passed on. If they have any memories of this lifetime, it may be minuscule at best. So if we do a reality check, let's think about a reality check for a moment. Okay? And anyone who has ever watched my open pagan church in the past, you've heard me say this. If we're so busy looking behind us, looking at the past, we're going to trip over the future. Because the future is going to be there, whether we're ready for it or not. Today happened. It's happening as we sit here and as we do this broadcast. It's happening. Today's going to happen. Whether we're happy, sad, angry, laughing, pouting, whether we are depressed, bipolar, schizophrenic, multiple personalities, let me tell you, today happened. We couldn't stop it. So, yesterday, I got a lot accomplished. I'm sore as hell up and down the ladder. But if I hung on, excuse me, if I hung on to how sore I am and how bad I hurt, I would not be able to get anything accomplished today whatsoever. Because I would be laid up in bed talking about how sore I am, how bad I hurt. And I'll be the first one to admit there are some days that I'm sore enough I have trouble getting out of bed. But yesterday is done. I'm moving on to tomorrow. And the same thing happens when we start trying to hang on too much of the days that are gone. We remember the good days and we remember the bad ones. But I tend to kind of like to take the bad days and go, what did I learn from that? Was that a bad day caused by me, my actions, momentum, karma? Or was it just a shit happens day? What can I learn from it? Robert says ordering food. The food's good. But the whole point to today's church, I think, was to kind of draw a line in the sand, if you will, and stop so much hanging on to the death day of a loved one and hanging on to the birth date and the life accomplishments of that loved one. Now, in retrospect, right? And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there because I promise somebody will send me a PM handing my ass to me on a platter going, well, what am I going to do about my child that their death date is the same as their birth date? They were stillborn. My heart goes out to you. It does. And I don't want to sound uncaring and unfeeling about those individuals that have had to deal with miscarriages, stillborns, people who have had a baby or a child ripped away from them before they ever got a chance to live. Are these young people that are killed in these school shootings or in these mass atrocities that other human beings do. But I'm still of the mind that if we do something in their name, donate to a good cause in their name, donate to someone donate to someone that needs it, right? In their name. And when we're looking at when we're looking at things of the past, family members that have moved on, I like to remember my grandmother and the things that she did, my grandfather and the good things that he did, even though he was a male chauvinist pig. He still did some good things for people. But I can't tell you the date that they passed. I have no clue. I can't tell you the date that people that I've loved that have helped me along, I can't tell you the date of their passing. But I think that's the whole point to the conversation today in the dialogue of the broadcast is letting go of those who have moved on and stop taking it so personal. Good morning, Sean. I've seen so many people going through the steps of healing. And yes, the steps of healing, they're a fact. You go through the pain, the anger, the loss, the missing, and it becomes a little easier as time goes on. But when you go through that momentary bout of anger, how could they do this to me? Well, they didn't do anything to you. It wasn't personal. Most of the time, unless somebody is psychologically imbalanced and takes their own life anyway, most of the time, when people have lived their lives and their life is done or it's snuffed short, they didn't look at their loved ones and go, I'm doing this to you. And they're dead. It had nothing to do with you. It's not personal. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. Unless you pull the trigger and then, well, that's between you and them. But generally speaking, what could any of us have done to stop it? The topic, for those of you just joining, I just got asked topic. Um, Topic is hanging on to the past, living in the past. But it goes the same with other things that have happened in the past. And of course, the first half hour, we covered the idea of celebrating the death and what brought forward the whole rhetoric, the conversation where I went. Was the reason for the topic this morning was celebrating the death of people like Martin Luther King, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. Um, Almost everybody in school can tell you the death date and the circumstances behind Abraham Lincoln. But how many people in school learned Abraham Lincoln's birth date and all of his accomplishments? We didn't. Of course, I went to school in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. They talked about his birth date, but they really concentrated on his death date, and they wanted you to remember his day of death. True, Sean says. We cannot fix what's already happened. Absolutely correct. Um, if we break something, we can try to fix it in the physical world. Like, you know, Sean says love what was and look positive at what we'll do. Yes. But I think our governments and our people and me and you, we should celebrate famous people on their birth dates and their accomplishments, not their death dates. We should, well, I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kids. That's not my job. But I will tell you, I stroke we in this in our household, we teach our daughter to embrace the birth, embrace the life. When a loved one has moved on and she has had two of her grandparents pass in the last 2 or 3 years of each other, I think. And we told her, remember their birth. Remember the things they did. Remember the happiness that they gave you when they were there. Don't so much hang on to the day they died. Yes, you miss them. Yes, you wish they were there come next holidays, right? When you go visit your family members in East Texas and you miss them because they're not there. That's perfectly human, perfectly normal. But the idea of hanging on to that death, there with her, she handles it better because she understands that life, as we know it, does come to an end. And the important things are the things that we do while we're here, the things that we accomplish while we're here. And the chat area is lit up this morning. I'm loving it. Yeah, well, you know, I get it. There are some famous people in the past that they have no idea their birth date. They don't. But celebrate their life. She's afraid she said, I don't celebrate the death of famous people. I don't either. Um, Famous people that I really respect, the things that they did, the accomplishments that they made. I try to find out what their birth date was. I try to remember what their birth date was. Like I said earlier, I do good to remember my own birth date. Give you a little secret. A lot of you guys on Facebook, Sean, Debbie, a couple others, and a lot of you guys that I've known for, I don't know, 10, 15 plus years. If it wasn't for Facebook, I wouldn't remember your birthday, and I'm sorry for that because I am horrible with birthdays. I check Facebook every day to see who has a birth date because damned if I can remember. Between the calendar on my phone and the calendar in Facebook, I actually managed to figure out everybody's birthday. And I try to give them a good happy birthday on Facebook and send them a text if I have their cell phone number. Sorry about that. Yeah, That's right. Death is a never ending cycle. Yeah, it hurts. But we can't let the sadness overtake us. So why do we? I want to take a sharp break because I got to let my voice rest for a minute. I got to clear out my sinuses a little bit. And, well, I know you guys don't want to hear that. So I'm going to pop up a little bit of music. We're going to take about a 3 or 4 minute break real quick, and we'll be back in just a moment. Again, this is Open Pagan Church. Our topic for today is living in the past. So we'll be back right shortly. Yep, see, told you it wouldn't be but a minute. So you guys that jumped up to step away from the keyboard for a minute, that's fine. Take your time. It's all good. Ooh. All right. Sean says, I want to hear it. No. I mean, granted, if I have no choice, if I'm fixing to sneeze or cough or blow my brains out and it's got to happen, I will try to get the mic up out of the way because, yeah, well, kickstart that lung and get it going. I will say this, and give, like I say, give people a minute or two to get back to their computers if they had to get up and do a walkabout. I started, and you can cause this as a commercial break if you want. I started vaping, right? E-cig. This isn't just an e-cig, it's called a mod, but um, I started vaping in 2009, right? And between 2009 and 2010, I probably smoked a half a cigarette, if that. I usually managed a drag or two when the brain thought, oh hell, I'll just smoke a cigarette. I like to hawk up a lung. But people that are thinking about going to the electronic cigarettes, I will tell you, it's not an easy transition. I didn't find it that hard because I like gadgets. I'm a gadget nut. I love gadgets. But you have to keep the batteries charged. You have to keep the atomizer clean. You have to keep the fluid fresh, and you have to purchase your fluid. Cigarettes were costing me about $100 a month. Yeah, about $100 a month when I quit smoking. This, once I got set up, once I got my mod and everything the way I like it, I replace my mod about every 2 years, right? I replace styles of tanks, once or twice a year, maybe 3 times if something really cool comes out. But we sit down and figured it up one time. I buy my fluid in bulk, right? And when I say bulk, I mean I buy my fluid 3 months at a time. But since I went to the e-cig, I spent 2 years coughing up black crap out of my lungs that I had no idea was, wow, yuck. And I spend about $250 a year, about $250 a year on my e-cig versus $100 a month. Now, I don't drink. I quit drinking alcohol in 1982. I also quit doing drugs of any kind in 1982. Granted, I have a couple of prescriptions and vitamins that I take that keep my fat ass going on a daily basis, but. And see, herein comes another thing. Ow. Right up there with living in the past, right? The best thing I ever did was went to the e-cig. Sure enough. And but living in the past, I knew when I started smoking at 18 years old continuously the the dangers. But I was one of those idiots that liked cigarette. Well, I can get whatever flavor I want now, and I'm only running about 3.5 to 4.0 grams of nicotine. There's like 3.4 or 4 grams of nicotine in a 20, 50, 50 ml bottle. So back on topic, living in the past, right? Says, we let our sadness overtake us. Death creates a hole and emptiness. You're right. You're right. Because that person or that animal or that family member or that whatever we call it that creates that emptiness and that hole, it really, if you think about it, it's not that hard to fill it in. You're never going to replace the person that's passed. Now, don't make that mistake. If a spouse, a direct family member, parent, grandparent, whatever, passes, don't try to replace them. And I want to explain that a little better with this, okay? Now, I realize y'all got a conversation going on over here, but listen to this real quick. If you dig a hole in Mother Earth, over time that hole will fill back in, right? When life actions causes a hole in our heart, causes a hole in our memories, or, one passes, and it does cause a hole of emptiness. We have to allow that hole to be filled in. Sean says, don't be so serious about life. We were born, we're going to live, and we're going to die, right? Boy, you can so tell. You can so tell Sean is shaman. That's a shaman core, essentially, is there's two guarantees in life. We're going to, once we're born, there's only one guarantee left. Everything else is a crapshoot. Everything else in between here is a crapshoot, cause and effect, momentum, right? Well, once we're born, we're going to live, We're either going to live a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, or a couple of years, or several years. But the two guarantees are we're going to live and we're going to die. Okay? So the more serious we get about it, the more afraid we become about it, eventually we stop living. Debbie says sometimes the past is easier than the present. Sometimes it is, yes. I mean, sometimes we like to hang on to the good memories and the things that happened when that loved one was still around. And we're in the throes of a present death or whatever. And we're trying to walk through the mud. I get it. This is a natural human thing. Okay? Some of us, and I say this in all honesty, some of us believe in easily flipping the negative to the positive, right? Easily stepping past what was into what is, because what is, it is, right? What was, what is. What will be, we don't know. We don't have a clue. We're not there yet. And if we're hanging on to that, we're hanging on to that fear, and herein lies the biggest thing, right? Herein lies the biggest thing. Fear. Unmitigated fear. Right? Fear. Are we afraid we're next? Are we afraid? Are we afraid that we leaned on that individual that we lost or that we said goodbye to? I want to change the term that we lost to a phrase of the one that we hung on to. Alright? Agree or disagree, just follow with me for a second. Humor me for just a second here. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just asking you to listen for just a moment. We have the fear of, am I next? We have the fear of, what am I going to do now that that person is not there for me to hang on to? They're not there for me to lean on. They're not there for me to ignore when things are going good. Turn to when things have gone to hell in a handbasket. Right? And the biggest thing is we can't fix it. You can't fix it. They're dead. They're gone. They're happy. They've done buggered off and started their own thing, and periodically coming back going, hey, are you there? How's it going? In some cases, not everyone still has the connectivity to their past elders. That's not a given fact. You have everything to do with what you believe, what you practice, how you believe, whether or not you even believe that you still have communication with the ones that have passed. Right? I have my own personal beliefs with that. And they're mine. They're my own personal beliefs and what I feel about that. But Open Pagan Church, we are about perceptions and ideas and theories. When I'm throwing out ideas and I'm throwing out advice and I'm throwing out things that I perceive might be a little easier to handle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you how you take it, how you perceive it, and how you live with it. Whether you think I'm a fuzzy face old coot that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, or whether you think I'm a relatively wise old coot that might have something decent to say, I'm fine one way or the other. Because whether you watch my broadcast or not, as long as I'm able, if I have nothing else going on, I'm going to be right here in this chair, driving down the road somewhere, doing Open Pagan Church. Because someone, somewhere, will want to hear what I have to say or what you guys post in chat. Because the things that you guys post in chat might actually help someone. And yeah, you miss them. But let me ask you a question. Reading the things that are flowing up over here. And I'm going to close with this. Right? I'm going to close with this. If you hang on so hard to the past and you refuse to move forward after the death of a loved one, and you're more hung up on worrying about the death date, you're more concerned about what you're going to do to remember the one that passed. If you're so wrapped up in the past, yesterday, yesteryear, right? If we're so hung up in it, how are you going to see the future today? How are you going to see tomorrow when it gets here? How are you going to move forward to tomorrow and make some plans for tomorrow when you're so wrapped up in yesterday? As you go through your daily life, think about what we're saying. Look forward to today and what you're going to accomplish. If nothing, okay, you can accomplish nothing today. Big deal. But don't let the days of accomplishing nothing become the norm. Don't let it hang on to the past so tight that the only thing you have is the past. I look forward to your comments. If you like it, click like. If you loved it, click love it. If you hate it, tell me why. I look forward to your comments. Subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time here on Open Pagan Church.